Hello and welcome back to the DoneDeal YouTube channel, and today we're joined with the Skoda Elroq, which is a long anticipated and hopefully a good selling car in Ireland, and we're also going to compare it to the EV3 with Mr. Mark Noble from Nobby on Cars.
How are you, Dave?
Good. So what's your argument with the EV3?
Well, I don't know if it's an argument. We're just comparing cars. It might be a friendly argument. Well, they're two of the most anticipated smallish sized electric. Are they SUVs? Are they crossovers? I hate the SUV comparison. But they're both available from mid-30s onwards. Both cars get a wiper. On the EV3 it's hidden. It's actually up here for aerodynamic qualities. And on the boot, Dave's probably going to tell me they're very similar also, but I'll give you the starting fact on this. 460 litres in the EV3. You can put some extra bits below here because there is an optional droppable shelf and there's little pockets on either side. But knowing Skoda as well as I do, there's probably more clever stuff in that car.
It is marginally bigger here in the Elroq, 470 litres. Now, we'll note that both our cars have manual tailgates, which is unusual to see. So in here, there's a little bit of shelving here, which is nice and handy, a 12-volt socket. There's a tiny bit of storage in here, but nothing too crazy. And as a whole, it's a good sized boot, which is easy to load things in. The load cover here is actually fixed, whereas over there you can pull it back and forth, which is quite nice. But yeah, nice and spacious, as you'd expect from a Skoda.
So while Dave's Skoda Elroq has a slightly bigger boot, and we are talking only slightly, remember 460, I have a frunk, which is quite decent actually, and you can put your Type 2 cable in here, or if you're not using that, you'll probably, well, there's not much else you would fit, but it's somewhere to put the cable, a dirty, wet cable, and Dave's going to have all that in his substantial boot. Rear area in the EV3, well, it's as you can see for yourself, it's decent enough. This passenger seat is all the way back. I'm about 5'9", so you still get space for the knees and the feet because it's a ground up EV. The floor is fully flat. On some previous Kia models, you'll be able to recline this rear seat a little bit more just to give you a bit more space. You can't do that in this version of the EV3. And the practical stuff is there as well, like the bottle holder and a reasonable shoulder height for rear passengers to be able to see out. I'd be fairly sure Dave Skoda has a little bit more space back here. Let's just clarify. Hey Dave, what's your rear like?
There's a bit more knee space and your feet tuck in nicely under the seat in front of you. There's also isofix points like there is in the EV3 that are really accessible here in the Elroq. Another thing I'd like to point out, Nobby 5'9", just like this is a little bit bigger. I'm also a little bit bigger, but I have tons of headspace, and there's some USB-C charging points down here. And overall, it's a very comfortable rear space. Even with a tall adult like myself, there's tons of room on a long journey.
You get two isofix seats in the rear of the EV3, and if you're dropping this rear bench to load larger items in from the boot, you can tuck the seat belts in with this handy little holder. I know Dave has fancy coloured seat belts, but I don't know if he has one of these.
No, unfortunately you're trumping me there, although my nice red seat belts do look good. There's no clip. I think Seat is maybe the only brand in the Volkswagen group to get that, but look what I do have, Mark.
Yeah.
I have a passenger isofix point. So this will make a big difference if you are a family of three.
Some front-wheel drive Kias suffered from wheel spin and torque steer in the past. I'm not saying that's been fully eradicated in the EV3. It's less obvious, but it is there at times. One huge benefit in terms of regen in the EV3 is the levels that you can manually override in the car. So you have 3 levels of regen. Then if you hold this paddle down for a couple of seconds, you'll see iPedal come up, and then the car effectively is a one pedal solution. So as soon as you lift off the accelerator, you'll feel more resistance on the motor and it will bring the car to a stop. And it's quite a relaxing way to drive in stop-start traffic. Fuel efficiency, somewhere between 15 and 18 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. That's kind of the temperature range of this time of year. We're filming in May with a mixture of normal roads and motorways. That should be where you're seeing the fuel efficiency in it. On the handling front, it's reasonably okay. Yes, you feel the weight at times. Is it a car that you're going to be ploughing through corners? Perhaps not. Perhaps that's more for the EV6, which has a sportier edge. This is very much a family SUV slash crossover, and will do all the things you need it to do, but the driving dynamics of the car, pretty standard for a mid-sized electric vehicle.
So the Elroq on the road, it is lovely. It is very similar to a lot of EVs, and if you've driven maybe an ID3 or an ID4, kind of any electric car built on a similar platform, it will feel very familiar in a very good way. It's got plenty of power. The turning circle is absolutely brilliant. It's probably marginally better than the EV3s, but again, that's stuff that probably won't matter massively in the real world. They're both good. Now, where it really suffers is there is no one pedal driving. So when you take your foot off the accelerator, even in B mode, it's very slow to recoup power, which means you use the brake pedal and it's not the most consistent push on the brake. So you find it can kind of jolt you a little bit. You do get used to it. It's virtually the same on all EVs, but having that I pedal that the EV3 have is unbelievable. In terms of efficiency, it's actually been pretty good. All week I've been blasting the AC because it's been quite warm, which really suffers when it comes to your efficiency, but I'm still getting maybe high 18, 20 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers when I've been on the motorway. But overall, it is a lovely car to drive. As far as the interior as it goes in this Elroq, well, this is a slightly upgraded, I think it's a €700 optional extra, so it's a bit brighter, which actually makes a big difference. Even sometimes to your mood, just having a nice lighter dash. Now, in terms of features, there's wireless charging here, cup holders. You can remove this thing in the drink holder, but still your drink doesn't actually fit in, or mine doesn't. There's a bit of storage in here. There's some wireless charging there. I do like how in a Volkswagen Group you can rest your arm there, which makes a big difference. There's also some shortcuts here to your climate control, your driving modes, and a few other things. This is where the magic happens though. Your infotainment system's brilliant. Apple CarPlay, it is wireless and it's really fast to connect. And that's where you tend to spend most of your time. There is obviously the menu itself, but generally in nearly every car, if it has Apple CarPlay, you don't go near that. The steering wheel is quite nice. I like how you can rest your arm here. And there's a small little screen up ahead of you which tells you things like your range, the speed limit, and a few other nice little details. But as a whole, really comfortable place to sit. And I actually think personally, this would be maybe my favorite interior.
First thing you'll notice in the EV3 is this integrated screen that just flows from the center right into the driver. One thing you can do is pay a subscription to watch things like YouTube, and the center area has a screen for the climate control, but it never actually leaves this center display, which should make life easier for you. There are some buttons, they're not really physical buttons, but they are behind this haptic bar here also. What you can do with this car is use Kia Pay, much like Apple Pay for example. You can use the car to pay for parking and also charge the car within Kia's inbuilt system, so no more using fobs or cards, and the Skoda can also do the same setup. It's good to see it happening in EVs finally in Ireland, because some markets have been ahead of us in this regard. One thing I've criticised in my own review of the EV3 is just how much space this wireless charging pad takes up. There is a lot of space then for storage down here, some grips for your bottles depending on how big your bottle is. A larger bottle, for example, won't actually fit in there, so you'll end up just leaving it to rattle around. One of the tricks in the EV3 is this extendable center armrest, which you can use to rest a laptop on when you're charging. In summary, some people will probably love this kind of more simplified grey setup of the Kia. It's probably a little bit more flash inside Dave's Skoda.
I've got bigger alloys.
I know you do, but I don't know if that's always a good thing.
No, it's not necessarily, but you can get smaller ones, but even 20-inch is kind of what's kind of the standard on the Elroq.
And that is huge. And my parents have just bought an Elroq and they're retired pensioners and they're driving around with 20-inch wheels on a car. I think that's a bit mad.
Yeah, it is. It's probably a little bit unnecessary, but it does look good. And that kind of leads us nicely into styling. I quite like this. I think it's called the Timiano
Green.
Green, yeah.
Or this is just grey.
But they do exciting colours. They actually do a very similar green, believe it or not. Now, in terms of weight, this is about 2 tonne.
This is 1,800 kilos in the smaller battery, or just under 1,900 kilos in the larger battery. which is going to help with efficiency as well.
Naturally, lighter car means less energy to move it.
If you have the smaller battery with the standard range, you'll get 100 kilowatt DC charging, 135 if you have the larger battery and the long range versions of the car. Dave?
Well, mine starts at 145 with the smaller battery, but it goes up to 175 kilowatts, which is quite substantial. And I actually was getting, well, I was getting about 130 during the week, but I found that very practical. Now, what I want to say though is, does yours come standard with a heat pump?
I'm afraid it does.
So yeah, this not so much. It's an extra 1,200 euros.
They both have battery preconditioning though, so if you want to optimize the battery temperature to charge at that destination of your faster charger, you can do that in both cars. One other area that I think you personally prefer in my car is the location of the port.
It is a massive difference. And actually, when I had one of these and I was test driving it, I pulled up to a charge point and there was loads of cars waiting. And then I looked and there was 2 free chargers and I asked, oh no, I can't use that one. And what it turned out is the location of the charge port there. Basically, a lot of the charge cables at fast chargers, they're quite short and they couldn't stretch over the boot, but they could stretch over the bonnet. And so I was able to charge and leave before one of the cars had even got a chance.
Kia are famous for their 7-year warranty, which comes in this car, or 150,000 kilometers, whichever comes first. But there is actually an 8-year warranty on the battery, and they stand over to a 70% state of health. However, I am aware of some older e-Neros on the road here in Ireland with well over 250,000 kilometers on them and 90 plus state of health on the batteries.
Yeah, so the warranty here on the Skoda, not as strong, it's 3 years. However, the battery is 8 years and 160,000 kilometers, which should be fine. And realistically, that's probably what you want to look out for when buying an EV, is that battery warranty, and ideally buy one in warranty so that you can kind of have peace of mind.
Of course, and a lot of the dealers which you'll find on DoneDeal are now providing on a used car a certificate with the state of health of the battery, which is really helpful as an owner, because we get it. If you're trying to buy a car, it's a lot of money. People want some reassurance, and they want reassurance in EVs for starters, but also if you're buying a used car, has it been serviced? Who's looking after it? What's the battery like now?
Now I have to ask Mark, in your summary, gun is to your head, what do you choose?
It's a tough one. You can't have favorites. I owe both of these brands a lot of subscribers on my own channel. Without either of these car companies, I'd probably still be getting going. The head probably says the EV3. I think you'll probably get a little bit more range out of it. The heart says the Skoda. There's more interior space. It's a little bit more colourful and brighter, albeit this is available in brighter colours, as you've said. I think for both cars to go to the sportier versions, they are on the more expensive side. The Sport line, as you said, is 50. The GT line is close to 50. That's a lot of money.
I would say in the real world, to buy either car is kind of how you want. You're talking mid to high 40s anyway. And on that, I think there's a little bit of a difference, I suppose, with this car maybe suits someone who's doing a lot of driving, maybe for work, doesn't have as old children that maybe need the space, whereas this, again, it can go far, but you have a little bit extra space in the rear. So it's, even though very similar target markets, probably slightly different, maybe points of life. Either way, both are actually brilliant cars and will make you quite happy.
One final curveball for you, Dave. Skoda Ireland have just dropped the price on the facelift Enyaq. So if you go for the entry-level version of that car, in some ways it actually undercuts the Elroq. And that's just going to confuse matters even more. There's also a facelift version now of the EV6, but if you find a delivery mileage last version of the EV6, that's also going to be a similar price to this.
It is a whirlwind. But anyway, let us know in the comments what you would pick. Thank you so much, Mark, for joining us in today's review, and we'll see you in the next one.